Hello everyone, my name is Quad and welcome to a video that will talk about modular weapons known as Kitguns. Kitguns are custom primary and secondary weapons you can create yourself out of different parts bought and crafted from two different vendors. One located at Fortuna on Venus and the other one on Deimos at Necralisk. First, let's go to Fortuna and look at the vendor there. We'll also go over the basics here. Here the vendor is Rude Zood. Talking to her will bring on many options. First, we'll go over Browse Wares option. Under this option, you will find many part blueprints to build your Kitgun with, Kitgun Arcanes, and more. You'll need lots of Solaris United standing to buy all the parts, but it is worth it, believe me. Each part blueprint needs to first be crafted in your foundry, so be sure to remember this. Luckily, you do not have to make your weapons completely blinded because there is an option to build Kitguns if you talk to Rude Zood again. Each Kitgun needs 3 pieces, a chamber, a grip, and a loader. Rude Zood sells 4 chambers, the Catchmoon, Gaze, Rattleguts, and Tombfinger. The chambers determine the damage type your weapon does and also change the projectile type your gun will have. We will go over all of them towards the end of the video, so you can skip to that section if you wish. The grip part determines the fire rate, recoil, range of the beam weapons, and damage of the weapon. They also determine if your gun will be a primary or a secondary weapon, so be sure to read the tooltip when you hover over the part. The primary grips Zood sells are Brash, Shrewd, Steady Slam, and Tremor, but the secondary grips are Gibber, Haymaker, Love Tap, and Ramble. That's it about the grips. Now let's go to the last part, which is the loader. The loaders determine the critical chance, status chance, critical damage, ammo capacity, and reload speed. Beam weapons are an exception to this, since the grip will have no effect on recoil or fire rate, it is always the same. I recommend you first look at the pieces you have and preview the Kitgun. Just choose the pieces. After you have one gun in preview, you can check the other parts and look at the stat changes so you build a gun you'd like to have. It is really hard to say which one is the best because there is so many arcanes, builds, mods, and everything else out there. You can pretty much make everything good. The only rule of thumb most of the time is more expensive it is, better it is. But that doesn't work every single time, obviously. Everything really depends on what kind of gun you have. If it's a high fire rate beam weapon, you'd probably like a lot of status chance. But if it's a slow firing, high damage weapon, you'd probably like a bunch of critical damage and critical chance, so just hit like a car. Saying only one part is the best is very bad advice since the gun you want should complement your playstyle. There is something known as guilding as well, which will increase the weapon's stats significantly. To guild a weapon, you first need to level it up to rank 30 and then bring it back to Rude Zood. Under the other services option, you'll be able to guild the gun and name it. You will need 5000 Solaris United standing and 5 shelter bonds to guild your gun, and after you're done, you will have a very nice gun. It is very important to mention that you may also preview the gilded version of the weapon in the customization menu before you make the gun. You just need to check the preview gilded box in the lower right corner so you see the big green numbers, which is always good. But yeah, that is it about the Rude Zood's offerings. Let's now continue to our second vendor, the Father at the Necralisk. He has exactly the same options as Rude Zood in the main menu, just other offerings, which are not a part of this video, and other Kitgun parts which we'll take a look at. He sells 2 chambers, the Vermisplicer and the Sporelacer, which determine the projectile. He also sells the blueprints to 2 grips, primary grip Palmaris and secondary grip Ulnaris, which make the weapon have a very quick fire rate in exchange for sacrificing very little damage. Loaders for the end manage other specs of your weapons, such as critical chance, fire rate, reload speed, ammo capacity, and more. You may also guild the Kitguns at the Father for 5000 Intrati standing and 25 Father tokens. I think this deal is far better than the Rude Zood's one, because Father tokens are very easy to farm. But yeah, that is it. Let's now look at every single Kitgun you can make. We'll first look at the primary version of the Kitgun and then at the secondary counterpart, with the main part being the chamber. Obviously, the different pieces will make different Kitguns, which is very important, but I will tell you about the recommendation I have for them all. If you have a different recommendation, please leave it in the comments below, but now let's start. Tombfinger primary weapon will shoot an explosive projectile that needs to charge up before it shoots. The weapon mainly deals impact damage with some puncture and radiation. It is great to use against many non-heavy enemies grouped up together, but due to the low fire rate, I recommend modding it for critical damage and critical chance. You may still use this weapon as a very low damage dealing shotgun by just clicking, but I really wouldn't recommend that because the damage is so low. Tombfinger's secondary weapon will shoot a quick, heavy shot towards your enemies that will deal radiation damage, impact damage, and puncture damage. Since the fire rate of the weapon is very low, I recommend modding it for critical chance and critical damage. It also does some radial damage if you miss the enemy, but it is not that good to be honest because of the quick fall off range. It is true that it can proc status effects a lot easier though. This weapon is good to have in your arsenal. I love using it against the Plains of Eidolon Thumpers for example because the damage is so high and they are very precise. Primary Gaze will shoot a beam of energy into the enemies. Getting status chance mods onto it is quite nice since the weapon only does radiation status damage if there are no mods equipped. The weapon is great if it has very quick fire rate and status chance since it can proc the status effects extremely quickly this way. Yeah, this is more of a status damage weapon, not a critical damage one. Secondary Gaze is a laser gun that deals damage to the enemy you hit and the two closest enemies to it if they are close enough. It is quite great for crowd control and proccing status effects. It mainly does puncture and radiation status effect damage, which is not the best, but you can easily complement this with some toxin or heat damage, so you can make this weapon very freaking powerful. You can also add some more fire rate, which will skyrocket the damage output you have. The Catchmoon primary chamber is super strong. It is a shotgun that shoots out a beam of damage. The weapon deals massive amounts of heat damage and a little bit less impact damage with no other mods equipped. It can be extremely powerful if you mod it for critical damage and critical chance, but it can also be great if you have the mods to dish out the massive heat damage and status chance, so you burn everything pretty much. I really recommend you try this chamber because it is super fun to use. The Catchmoon secondary chamber shoots a massive shot that mainly deals radiation and impact damage. It is a must-have for every player at some point while playing Warframe because it can be so powerful. The kickback it has is extremely powerful as well, so managing the recoil may be a tiny problem. The low fire rate also makes this weapon great to mod with critical chance and critical damage because the status effects are more or less just useless. It is just too hard to proc them. The Rattleguts primary chamber is a fast fire rate rifle that mainly deals radiation damage, some puncture damage, and very little slash and impact damage. I recommend going for a hybrid build for some crit and some status damage and as much fire rate as possible. I love to use this gun against the Corpus and go for their heads because I just don't know why, it just is what it is. I love to shoot at their heads and just pretend I'm in a normal game shooting a normal weapon because this is pretty much what it does, just normal assault rifle. The Rattleguts secondary chamber is a fast fire rate pistol that deals radiation and puncture damage. Modding it for fire rate is the best choice since this is one of the best stats. You can also go for increased magazine capacity because it can really eat through the ammo like crazy. I like to mod this weapon for more slash damage and some viral to use it against the Grenier. It is very powerful and very fun to use. The Vermisplicer primary chamber mainly deals toxic and slash damage with some puncture and impact. It is quite an interesting gun since it does not shoot, but it does make tentacles appear out of the gun that will find the enemies in its vicinity and will target them. Yes, it targets multiple enemies at a time, which can make it quite powerful against every single group of enemies. It is a very good weapon to have and can compare to Nucor on many levels. The Vermisplicer secondary chamber deals toxin and slash damage with some puncture and impact. It, similarly to the primary counterpart, spawns tentacles that follow a few enemies that are very close to you. This gun is basically a poor man's Kuva Nukor, if I'm honest. High fire rate and some status chance do suit it the best if you ask me, but you can also go full crit build since the pistol can be modded and, after some tinkering, quite reliable. And the last primary chamber, the Sporelacer, does impact damage and toxin damage. The weapon is automatic and it shoots out blobs that land and explode right away in quite a large area. It is great to use as an AoE weapon, but it does lack the reliability of some other kit guns. Due to the boom and zoom nature of Warframe nowadays, this is a godlike weapon if modded correctly. I don't really recommend it since it is boring and I myself hate playing with it, but maybe you can check it out and see for yourself. The Sporelacer secondary chamber is not that different from the primary counterpart. It shoots out a blob that explodes on impact, with the main difference being the secondary is not automatic, but only shoots one shot. It does pack quite a punch though, so it is very good. The main status types it inflicts are impact and toxin damage, so it can be modded quite well with some other status effects and high critical damage mods, but everything really depends on your playstyle, Warframe, and so many other things. That is it about the kit gun varieties. This video shouldn't be viewed as the best kit guns in the game because there are so many builds that are amazing to build, even unconventional ones. This should be more of a showcase of what the weapons shoot like and how they act, so you can see what you can do with your playstyle. I love fast fire rate crit weapons that maybe don't do that much damage but destroy everything with status, so modding this way is quite a fun experience with kit guns for me. But what about you? Please let me know in the comments down below. With this, I thank you for watching. Please like, comment, share, maybe even subscribe, and also have a very nice day. Bye guys!